Hi, I'm Mr. Kangas, and today we're going to talk about Chapter 5, Section 3, Multiplying Fractions, and we're going to take a look at why you just multiply straight across when you're multiplying fractions. Now, when you're multiplying fractions, it's important to understand a couple of things. The first thing is, what does multiplying fractions do? What does multiplying by fractions do? Now, if you have 6 times 3, that's actually telling you that you are adding 6 3 times, or you're adding 3 6 times. It can go either way. For right now, we're going to view it as adding 6 3 times, and you get 18. When you add 3 6s, you get 18. If you do 6 times 2, logic tells us that we should get a smaller answer, and the multiplication tells us that we should be adding 6 2 times, and so we get 12. Now, if I do 6 times 1, again, my answer is going to get smaller because I'm multiplying 6 by a smaller number, and this is telling me to add 6 one time. So I get 6. Now at this point, if I go lower than 1, I'm going to be multiplying 6 by either a fraction or a negative number. I'm going to use fractions, since we're talking about fractions today, and show you how that works. So 6 times 1 was telling me to add 6 one time, so 6 times 1 half is telling me to add 6 half a time. So in this case, I get an answer of 3. Because if I add half a 6, I'm adding 3. So that's really important to understand. Basically, when you are multiplying fractions, okay, you actually end up multiplying, when you multiply by a fraction, you actually end up finding, for example, if you're multiplying by 1 half, you're going to find out what half of that number is. If you're multiplying by 3/4, you're going to find out what 3/4 of that number is. Okay, so that's kind of what multiplying by fraction does. So for example, if I take 1 half and multiply it by 6/8, I'm going to find out what 1 half of 6/8 is. The other way though, to read it or to think of it is if I take 6/8 and multiply it by 1 half, I'm going to find out what 6/8 of 1 half is. So, because remember, multiplication, can you use the commutative property? 3 times 2 is the same as 2 times 3. Okay, something important to understand. So the answer I get to this problem will actually tell me what half of 6/8 is, and it will also tell me what 6/8 of 1 half is. It's actually going to be the same answer, the same number. But why does it work? Why, when I multiply 1 half times 6/8, why do I just go straight across? How come that works? Why can I do that? Why can I do 2 times 8 and 1 times 6 and get an answer of 6/16 and have that be the correct answer? Which also reduces to 3/8. Okay? Why does this work? Why does multiplying across work? Well, the first thing I want to show you is if you just take a look at my final answer of 3/8, and you take a look at my problem, half of 6/8 is 3/8. Does that make sense? It should, because the denominator tells us how many pieces we need. The denominator tells us how many pieces we need to have one whole, but the top number tells us how many pieces we have. Okay? So, for example, if you were thinking of this as a pizza, because a pizza has 8 slices to be a whole pizza, but we only have 6 of those 8 slices. Now, if I wanted to find out what half of those 6 slices is, wouldn't it be 3 of those slices. And that's exactly what this represents. You're still talking about a pizza split into 8 pieces, but you've only got 3 pieces now because you have half the pieces. And so what happened here when I got the 6/16, okay, why this multiplying straight across worked is because by doubling how many pieces it takes to make a whole, but multiplying how many pieces I have by 1, so in other words keeping it the same, I've essentially reduced it by 1/2. Because one thing to keep in mind is as fractions get bigger, they actually get smaller. So by doubling the number of pieces I need to make one whole, I actually just made that fraction smaller. I actually just cut that fraction in half. Now normally to cut a number in half, we divide it by 2. To cut a fraction in half, you multiply the denominator by 2. So you're going the other way. You're trying to make the denominator bigger because the more pieces it takes to make one whole, the smaller your pieces are going to be. Okay, and the other thing too is if I took 6/8 and divided it by 2, which is what we usually do when we cut something in half, you actually end up multiplying 6/8 by 1/2. That's for another video, but that video is in the chapter 5 section, and we can talk about that under the dividing rational numbers chapter. And I get into more detail on that. So what ended up happening here, just to reiterate quickly, is I have 6 slices of pizza. It takes 8 slices to make a whole box of pizza. So by multiplying straight across, we said, well, instead of needing 8 pieces to have a whole pizza, now you need double. Now you need 16 pieces. You still only have 6. That's what the 1 times 6 told me. I still only have 6 pieces. But now the number of pieces I need to have a whole pizza has doubled. So essentially, the number of pieces I have has been cut in half. Because now I need twice as many pieces. So for example, if I have a pizza that's split into 3 pieces, and I have one of those pieces, actually let's split that pizza into 4 pieces. If I've got a pizza split into 4 pieces, and I have 2 of those pieces. Now, it takes 4 slices of pizza to make a whole pizza in this case. Okay, so my denominator would be 4. I have 2 of those slices. Now, if I wanted to figure out what half of this is, if I just simply double the number of pieces it requires to make a whole pizza, okay, but I keep the number of slices I have the same. So I just doubled the number of pieces the whole pizza has. Okay, so the pizza went from needing 4 pieces to now I need 8 pieces of pizza to make a whole pizza. Okay, so we're going from 2/4 to 2/8, right? The number of pieces I have is going to stay the same, but the number I need to make a whole pizza is going to double. So right now I have 4 pizzas. Right now I have 4 slices, but I can only have 2. So I'm going to erase 2 of them. So essentially the amount of pizza I had was cut in half. Okay. Now, what would happen if, for example, I wanted to find 2/3 of 6/8? Okay. What ends up happening is I'm going to multiply the denominator by 3. So now instead of needing 8 slices of pizza to have a whole pizza, I now need 24. I need 3 times as many slices. Okay? So essentially what I just did was I figured out 2 24ths, okay, or 6 24ths. So if I multiplied this by 1/3, I know 1/3 of 6/8 would be 6 24ths. Okay? So again, we're multiplying the top numbers together. So if I want to know 2/3, wouldn't I double the number needed for 1/3? Because for 1/3, I would only need 6 slices of pizza to find out 1/3. For 2/3, I need double that because 2/3 is twice as big as 1/3. So by multiplying the denominator by 3, I've essentially taken the proportion of the pizza I have and I've divided it into thirds, or I've tripled the number of total pieces it requires to make a whole pizza. And so if I kept the number of slices I have the same, that would be 1/3. So the 6 over 24, right? If I did 1/3 times 6/8, okay? The number of slices I have, or in other words, the numerator, the parts I have, would stay the same as 6, right? The denominator would change. It would triple. Because remember, as you get bigger in a fraction, as your denominator gets bigger in a fraction, your fraction gets smaller. So by tripling it, it's actually the same thing as dividing it into thirds. So I tripled the number of pieces of pizza it takes to make a whole pizza. I've left my slices the same. I still have 6, but now it takes 3 times as much to make a whole. So I now know what 1/3 of 6/8 is. But over here, I can't just leave the number of slices I have the same because now I'm looking for 2/3, which is twice as much. So I've got to multiply the number of pieces I have by 2. And so then I get 12 24ths instead of 6 24ths. 1/3 would be 6 24ths. 2/3 would be 12 24ths. It's twice as big. Okay. I know this is a little hard to wrap your head around. And I may not have done the best job explaining it, but I will refine this video. If you have any feedback, let me know. If something doesn't make sense to you, let me know. That way I can come back and refine the video or redo the video and post a new one that makes a little bit more sense. Let me know what worked and what didn't work for you. But that is why multiplying fractions work. Tune in for the next video.